employee, my team member, we didn't do a full calendar block like we had gone over last week, but the day after that session, after the workshop, we were like, it was Friday and we were like trying to get things done, and we were both like, why don't we have 2 A&R heads down days where we like don't schedule any calls, and then the other days of the week we're like free to schedule calls, which we talked about, but we never blocked it off on our calendar.
Yeah.
So we've done that, and it's totally game changing. It gives us freedom to do calls, or and Thursday is one of our days for calls, so it's like nice to look at this and be able to do it. Versus the heads down day, we're like no distraction, only internal stuff, and it's totally liberating.
Yeah, awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for implementing it so quickly. Who else? I think I saw some other hands raised when I asked the question of how's it going with your availability calendar? How's it going getting your business organized from what we've talked about so far?
I can definitely say that it's nice to know that in general, people will respect your schedule when it's outlined for yourself. So if you say I only work till 6:30, then people understand what their limitations are. And I've actually had someone schedule in my calendar time to call me instead of just calling me on the fly constantly. Or someone might say, okay, well, you only take meetings on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so I'm only going to schedule on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So before I felt like I had to take on things, it was like I had to pick up this phone call, or I had to schedule it on Fridays whether I wanted to or not. And I'm realizing that I really don't. Having that outline for myself allows me to make or break the rules, and it's my responsibility. Everybody else kind of just can be informed and respect it. It's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's empowering, right? Kind of like what Allison said before, like once you have that space and you know what to protect, you actually have something that you know what you want versus it floating. Yeah. Who else? All right, well then we'll move on. So to summarize what we've talked about so far, we've shared the availability template so you can block out your time so it works for you, and we should be putting in life and business into those into your time blocking. We've talked about how to eliminate paper from your business. Can you guys give me 1 second? There's clearly something going on that I need to. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. Our bearded dragon got lost, and then it was found in the neighborhood, and now it's back, and now it's like a wild woman, and she just runs around torturing Brisket now, so I put her away. Like, I don't know how we suddenly have a zoo over here, but we do. So we talked about like really getting paper out of our lives, right? How just having things in our space and being cluttered can be really overwhelming and distracting. We also talked about how to create some systems, right, for expenses. We've talked about creating some systems for communicating with our teams. And now we're moving into some of the bigger choices. So a lot of what we talked about so far has been how do we organize the things around our business so that we can find room to take on the big projects. And now that we know what's a project versus what's a maintenance task, chances are we have too many projects on our list still. So how are we choosing what projects to take on or what business pillars to keep? Any ideas before we dive in? How do you guys think we're going to choose?
I assume it's probably going to involve limiting, because you mentioned before that we have like 25% to take of our capacity to take on a new project. So then any new project takes on 25% of your life. And I almost guarantee you that once we all write it all down, we're going to have at least 4 projects. So we're going to have 100% of our time taken up by these project related items. It would be nice to know how to take on what would work now and then prepare for what would work in the future at the same time. But I assume that we're going to be limiting.
We are. So much of being able to double our sales this year is going to be about what are we removing, because part of the KonMari process or the minimalism movement, it's not about getting rid of things because too much stuff is bad. It's about getting rid of things because when we have all these things, we don't realize the weight or the distraction that it's putting on us, emotionally, physically, and mentally. And if you go back to when we've talked in the past about the One Thing book, the reason that book asks you to pick the one thing that will change your business for tomorrow is because we have to use all of our brain capacity. We have we use up our brain space as the day goes on, which is why it's harder and harder to make decisions, right? It's decision fatigue. So we have to really be looking at what are we putting our brain power towards? And is it something that is going to move our business forward, or is it something that's just on our to-do list, right? We started that conversation on Monday. Are we doing things because we wrote them down and said we would? Are we doing things because they are actually going to move our business? So the only way to really move our business is to increase sales. It's the only marker, right? There's lots of sophisticated ways to organize your business and get it structured and look at operations and marketing. But at the end of the day, cash flow is what matters in a business. And the only way to have cash flow is to be having sales coming in. So we can't double sales if we don't focus on sales. So knowing that we have to spend about 75% of our day moving our business forward, right? And getting the things done that are required to just maintain the business, we do only have 25% of our time to do other things. Most people I've talked to about their projects, there's more than 10 of other, because a project can be, again, it can be strategy work to organize a part of your business. It can be work to implement something new to your business. It can be a new product. It can be a new pillar. It can be a whole new business. So what we really want to focus on is getting things complete and done, so they're truly done and we can actually move on. What we don't want is lingering bits and pieces to stay in our to-do list, and we never get that complete feeling, and we never get to celebrate a launch happening or an integration happening. So that's why we were sorting things into projects. So now that you have all these other things you should do, I really want us to look at all the businesses we have, all the projects we have, all the products that we have, and start to decide which ones are actually going to move our business forward. So the way that we would evaluate that is looking at, first, what's making us money. Two, how much time are each of these things taking of us? And then looking at the ratio of time to income. So I did this example recently with some clients, and we saw that when we looked at their different products or pillars or businesses, there were some things that they were doing that just didn't make any sense at all. So who thinks they have something that may not make any sense at all? When we look at, is it making you money and how much time are you giving it? Yes, Gail.
Yeah, we mentioned this in our one-on-one sessions that looking at how much money I'm realistically making from doing middleman work, honestly, is a huge time sink, and per dollar, the dollar per hour doesn't match up with the same amount of time put into something else.
Yeah. And so now that you see that, how are you thinking about that part of your business?
First thing I'm doing, instead of just jumping ship, because I do have people who rely on me, I am limiting the amount of hours I spend on it by limiting what my clients' expectations can be of me for how much I'm doing outside of just the middleman work. Because it's a lot of coaching, which is great because that's what I enjoy doing, but I need to incorporate that into a business strategy that allows me to be paid for the hours for that separately.
Mm-hmm. Great. Christina, you raised your hand as well. What do you see?
Well, I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but since my business is an incorporation of coaching and products, even though I'm not selling them, that's where I get diverted is I like to help people heal. So sometimes I get diverted on doing things that I like to do for myself. But more recently, the more I learn about cannabis and making products and people now want them. So I started going this way, like, oh, awesome. Like if I have something that'll help people, but I'm not ready for that. And I have to keep reminding myself, like, stay focused, stay focused. You can get to products later. And yes, on my own time, I can make them for my friends and family who use them, like the muscle rubs or whatever. But yeah, because, you know, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I can add this and I can do this. And then realistically, then I'm just all over the place.
Yeah. And so it's a great thing, right? Like there's nothing wrong with having these other things on your let's test this list. You know, I had a great call yesterday, and this woman has this great idea that can layer on and graft off of her existing business. And she's like, okay, well, I need to make the website and do social and da-da. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, pick 4 people, do a test, make sure that they want this service, go through all the steps, make sure you actually want to do it. Because just because the idea is a great idea and you have someone who wants to be a yes already, doesn't mean that you'll want to do the job and all the steps it takes. It doesn't mean that you'll enjoy it. It doesn't mean that it'll become a business where it needs a website and it needs all these things. So really make sure we're putting things into test mode. So if you have a new idea, how do we test it before we lock it into what it will be so we can turn it into like a real business, right? So if somebody's coming to you for something and it keeps happening, there's nothing wrong with like doing a test and seeing if there's any life to it and if you like it. But make sure you give yourself a start and an end time. Make sure you follow those test steps of like give it a cap for how much money or time you're going to put into it so you can use that. But it really does become one of your projects. And if you are still in the place of building your primary business, I would encourage to maybe like let that project wait until, you know, give it a date you can start it. Like we'll look at this again April 1st and see if it still makes sense. But we have to really narrow it down. So one of the things that I've been doing with Powerful Ladies is evaluating every pillar that's under the LLC and looking at how much money is it bringing in? How much do I spend to make that business run? How many hours am I investing in it? And looking at those 3 factors to determine, like, is this business working on its own? So for who here again has like multiple businesses, right? And who has multiple products? Okay, so exactly what we're evaluating again, and for Maddie, like for you trying to find what you want to be doing and like maximizing just having more achievements, right? The same thing works. So when you look at all the things in your life, which of them are working? So when I look at my coaching, for example, coaching's working, people are signing up, people are getting results. It really requires just me, right? There's not a lot of extra things. There's a few apps that I have to make it work, right? I use HelloSign, I use Acuity for scheduling. But when I look at it and look at how, is it profitable? I can say yes, right? So that gets a check mark. And then if I move on to like the podcast. So we were supposed to turn the podcast into for-profit or an income stream last year. It was year 2, we were going to turn it into an income stream. We pivoted to make Thrive because of what happened in the world. So that's part of our new plan this year. But even looking at the podcast, it's so inexpensive to make that, and we've created such a system that it's so low cost that even though it's not making an income now, it won't take much to make it create an income. Does that make sense? So that's why for me, the podcast is like number 2. And then if I look at Thrive is happening, it's working, and it takes a lot of resources to make Thrive happen. So when we look at Thrive, that one is ranked 3 right now because it's not in the easy money section. Does that make sense? So what in your businesses would you consider easy money? Meaning that it makes you money, it's the least amount of effort, you enjoy it, and people are showing up to say yes. Yes, Gail?
I think for me, it would probably be Patreon, because we've taken some steps to automate some of the factors like the time sync for the coupons. I'm already posting about things anyways. And on a monthly basis, it's a consistent amount of money. And on a design basis, it's good for my business. It makes money through my shop afterwards. It makes money every month on the first, automatic charges. So it's a subscription service. And when it comes down to being a time sync, even though it's production stuff, it's production time that would be put towards stuff anyways. It could get worse, it could get better. I'm just saying when it comes down to the time it takes. But I would say that it's easy money because I've already automated some things and delegated the difficult parts of it, like the shipping and receiving, as well as the grading. And now the coupons is super easy. I just copy and paste an email. And if they have the code, they can use it as much as they want versus like limiting it and having to input everything manually and stuff. So far that's working.
Okay, so great. So now that you've identified what you think is like a golden goose opportunity, right? For anyone who watched the presentation last week, what's the golden goose that you have? So if you spent 100% of your effort on Patreon, what could happen?
It's really hard to say because Patreon has a higher cost level than maybe my shop. So it's got like a 10% overhead cost just for the platform. But if I spent more time on it, I don't know, maybe, I mean, I don't know. Actually, I just don't know. I don't know if more people would want to be on board. It's like it's a crowdfunding type thing. So it's someone being willing to pay you monthly for a subscription service rather than pay you willy-nilly every once in a while when they feel like it. So I don't know if putting more time into it is going to increase the amount of people making that decision or not. I'm not sure how to do that.
Well, it does depend on how our time is used, right? But I think from a high level, it's if we see like what's our golden goose within our portfolio, whether it's a product or it's a pillar or it's a brand, just on paper, based on the math, right, of it's already giving us money, we already have customers, it doesn't have a lot of costs, it's easy for us to do, easy being relative, right? Like an ideal golden goose is the one where you show up and you just get to be you and you're making money, right? So on paper, it would say, if you spent more time doing that, or meaning putting more customers into that product or sharing it with more people, if you spent time growing that business from a customer perspective and just getting more sales, it should lead you to doubling your business.
Would it be the golden goose anymore if the time was increased?
So the golden goose, let me explain that a little bit more because it's a good question, right? So in an ideal scenario, the pinnacle of golden goose things, right, is I made a course once, it's evergreen, and people just keep buying it, and I set up an automation, I haven't touched it since. I don't think that actually exists in the world, right? Because when you really look at who's having evergreen products work, they're still working it. So you want to look at what is the thing I can spend time on with the least effort and the least cost that will produce like 10x. So if you're spending 10 hours, how do you generate 10 times more than you're doing with the time you spend now? So for example, I'll use my coaching business as an example. Typically I have 10 spots for how many clients I can have. If my coaching business is my golden goose, what would happen if I had 20 spots? Could I automatically double my business? Or what if I added, 50% more? What if I just had 15 hours? Like, is there a direct translation between being able to get more customers in and it growing without any extra costs? So without extra marketing, without other things, like how can we move people into that part of the business? Because again, so often we just need to make phone calls to get people to get more customers, right? And by phone calls, I'm summarizing just outreach. Like what would happen if you spent more time connecting with customers or clients or calling people or networking or going into Facebook groups or reaching out to different students, right? If you spent that time on sales, what of your categories would actually move. Is this making sense? Okay. It's hard to read everyone today.
If I was considering that, then I would say probably my shop would be my golden goose, not Patreon. My personal shop itself makes the most money. It probably takes a similar amount of time, except there's a lot of overhead with constantly selling for my shop like I do, and also updating the interface and on a regular basis. And so it costs me more money, but it makes me substantially more of a regular income.
Yeah.
And I have more content that just exists without adding more. That, for example, if I spent more time doing what you're talking about, with just like sales or getting more people to buy on pushing more of that product,
Yeah.
I probably could do that 10x thing with my shop quicker than I could do it with Patreon.
Yeah, perfect. So you're thinking through the logical path I was hoping like you guys would all find, right? We all want to find the thing where once we make it to whatever capacity it's able to be done, we can just be selling it, right? Because so often, especially in the creative entrepreneur space, we think the answer to more money is a new product or a new class or a new pillar, when the path to more money or a more efficient business is typically just getting more people to buy what you already have. Now, with your shop, of course, there's a couple things, right? Because you're always going to have new products kind of coming through based on a retail model, but you could also just sell more units of what you already have, right? You can up your quantities, which would lower your costs. Like there's that whole scale capacity. So when we look at all the things we have, what would happen if we stopped making more stuff and just got more people to focus on one of the things that we have? What would happen?
Well, I know for me, one of the things that helped was that my messaging was a little more focused, and it wasn't like I was talking about this one week and then I'm talking about this and then I'm talking about this. Like you can keep talking about the same couple of things,
Yes.
and then more people are really know what you're known for, versus like there were times where I'm just like, people will ask me, oh, you do privates? I didn't know that. And I'm like, I just talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can keep repeating the same messages, after the 6th or 7th time somebody's seen it, they're like, oh yeah, she does that,
Yeah. No, because people don't listen, right? Yeah, people don't listen. And even though we're saying it every day or every hour, that doesn't mean our whole audience heard any of it, right? Because who knows what other people are doing. I bet you guys have no idea how often I'm sharing things or emailing things or posting things that you guys never even see. Never even see, because you're busy doing your own stuff, right? So part of sharing, right, is that if you believe that what you have to offer is going to help the people that you want to help and that you want to have as customers, as clients, it's being committed to get them to hear the message. And so just like a little kid, when they're like, mom, 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 they're committed to you hearing them. They're committed to you getting their message. And of course, we translate that into annoying because we're like, I heard you the first time, right? But that's normally not what happens when it comes to receiving an email or an Instagram post or something else, because it's so diluted that it's not, the customer doesn't feel the constant poking, even if we're the ones doing it from a business perspective. Does that make sense? So again, when you guys are making your list of all the products you have, all the things you want to do, all the businesses that you have, and you start looking at which ones are making me money, which ones cost me the most amount of time, which ones are costing me the most amount of money to run, what is showing up for you guys? Just those 3 factors. I see some nodding, Miranda. What are you seeing?
Hi. I'm mostly thinking about my husband. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna tell him all about it today. He makes really cool things, but like he does the exact opposite. He won't just keep reordering the things that have been successful. It's like, okay, that was like, that was just one run and I'm not doing it again because that makes it really special, which he's a collector, so he's into that, mentality. So he's constantly making small runs of new things. He has so many things. I don't even know. He's like, that thing that I'm like, no, when I thought you were doing this. He's like, I already sold out of those.
Mhm.
And it's not good.
Well, so there could be a strategy, right, where creating collector things is what it is. If the story you're telling is everything's a collector's limited edition, like if the store is called like coolest shit ever limited edition only, like if that's what it's called, then it makes sense to have that be part of your process. But then the story you're telling to get people in isn't about the individual items. It's about the overarching message. So I'm so present right now looking at my own business and at my clients' businesses right now of, whenever we're in the topic of the month, right? I see it everywhere. And I'm so present right now to how much time we think we're being productive and we think we're working and we think we're moving the ball forward, when instead of pushing the ball forward, we're like playing in our own sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really trying to like get everyone to look up and be like, hold on, am I having like creative carrot time, or am I actually like doing something that would move the business? Like I did a whole month, September, I think, of last year, I did a big sales push for coaching. And I played this game with my coach where I was like, I'm going to put everything off my calendar that's not pre-scheduled. I am just going to be selling for the whole month and see what happens. Because I say that and I'm like, that does not sound fun. It was so much fun. Because even though I'm always talking to people about the power of selling and hustling and talking, like it still doesn't always occur to me as the most fun we could do in our business, because I still have old stories about selling, right? I'd rather make something. I'd rather be collaborating with somebody. So I had to reframe that message and be like, hold on, what is fun about sales? What does happen when I'm talking to a new client? And it completely changed it, because I realized we get so in the cycle that everyone knows our stuff and what we're up to, and nobody does. Right? It's like this navel contemplative thing where we think the whole world is right here, and it's not. Somebody mentioned, Mikkel, right? The people who are like, I didn't know you did that. Like, there are people in my life who I know have like, I've talked in depth about my business and like, they don't know what it actually is. So it became this really fun thing. Again, I'm going back to my dream customer list. Who do I want? Who do I want to be talking to? And again, prioritizing all of it. So the only way to double your business is to look at the things you have and figure out, like prioritize which ones are going to move the needle the fastest. The same customer or client that I was talking to yesterday, who has this great new idea that would graft off of her current business. We looked at her number one, like her gold star business, which is her bread and butter. And she's like, yeah, but like, we have to do all of this. And I challenged her. I'm like, what if, because she's a service-based business. I go, what if you filled up all of your client slots by the end of Q1? What if you hit your sales goal for that first item by the end of Q1? If you knew that you hit your sales goal for your prime business product and pillar by the end of Q1, of course, you'd have other people coming in, right? Because people still show up, but you could literally pivot to anything else that you wanted to. So why wouldn't we play that game of how do we hit our sales goal for whatever product or pillar we want right now? Because so often what's hanging over our head isn't that we need new projects, it's that we need more money. So the other part of organizing our businesses to double our sales is getting real honest with ourselves. Great example in my own kitchen. Anyone else have a partner who likes to leave all their stuff on the counter and not put it away in the cupboard, right? So I know from my past life of having an organizing business, there are some people who are so visual that if it's behind a cupboard, it like disappears. Like it could literally leave the house. So I'm pretty sure Jesse is that person where like if you put it in a drawer or behind a cupboard, it just must not exist anymore. So everything he wants in his life, he wants it in view. I am the opposite. I want nothing in view and I want it all behind something closed and pretty, right? So one of the things we're battling about right now are supplements and powders. I'm all about us taking our vitamins, especially in the land of COVID. And I'm pretty sure half those vitamins are not being taken. So that's a great and easy example of let's get real about what vitamins we're using and can we please get rid of the others, right? It's just taking up space that we don't have in our kitchen. And so we have to look at the same thing, like let's get real about our actual habits. I've had another budgeting client where they were so stressed out about their grocery budget and why was it so big and we're throwing food away. And I asked them, are you buying food that you really eat or are you buying food that you hope one day you will eat? And they went, shit, we're buying food that we wish we ate and then we throw it all away. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, just stop, like stop lying to ourselves. So we have to do the same thing with our business. Stop lying to ourselves about what's working, what might work, what could work, and just be like, hold on, what is actually working right now? Because tomorrow I want to feel more money in my bank account. Like that will actually change how things happen. And so this can be a big shift if we are creative, heart-led entrepreneurs, because the money should just show up if we do what we love, right? Miranda, your face is amazing right now. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it doesn't work that way because I mean, you and I have talked about it a bunch. I just like doing the creative part and not the selling part, and the money's not showing up. I have all these really cute designed things that nobody's selling.
Yeah. So yeah, so again, how do we reframe the selling?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it was like reining in on the focus. I haven't done the exercise yet with the 3 pillars because I know that it's going to knock out 90% of my business. But yeah, I know the things we need to do. We're just not doing them because my husband and I share most of our businesses except for a couple that we do on our own, but we're both the same kind of person. We're both creative. So we don't have time to sit down and strategize because we're working on all these things. But yeah, focus.
And here's the best part of this is that, again, if you played the game I talked about a couple sessions ago about how do you do your strategy in 5 minutes, right? Literally that chef planned out their entire menu for 2021 in 5 minutes. Because as long as we have the key things called out, the rest will fall into place. Like how often do you know everything in your head and you just didn't write it down? So sometimes it's just a matter of like, let's just write it down. And you don't need a game plan that is super level sophisticated. You don't need a game plan that has all the things that the world is telling you that you need. You just have to go back to your lemonade stand of like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who do I want to share this with? And how do they pay me? That's it. Right? So, and part of the reframing of the sales part is if you're a creative entrepreneur, the best part sometimes of your business is getting people to see what you have and go, oh my gosh, that's so cute. Right? So people can't say that if you don't show it to them. So how do you just spend time showing people what you made? We skip that part. We go, we made it. And then we wait. It's like the if you build it, they will come is like not reality in a business. So if you make it and you share it with people, they'll come. And so again, there's 3 steps to marketing anything or selling anything. One is, hi, my name is. Then it's, this is what I do. And the third is, do you want to play? Right? If we break it down into kids, like playground rules. Hi, I'm Miranda. I sell cocktails. Do you want one? That's it. Like that's the entire marketing and sales strategy you need. I dare you to put that video up, by the way. But really it's that simple. And yet we don't do the simple, easy option because of whatever's in our head. So I see lots of thought bubbles happening. Mikkel, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking I'm going to make that video.
Uh-huh.
See what happens.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that something about recording where your progress, because I remember throughout this whole process, one of the things that stick with me and I bring up all the time is you can't manage what you don't measure. So when it comes down to setting the precedence about where you are and then implementing something and seeing if that creates a bump, it's nice to be able to see where those changes lie, and then kind of pivot from there, rather than just being like, I don't know what this is going to do. And then when you make the change, you still don't know what it did. We still don't know whether that like brought in more or less because we're not really managing what our baseline is and then watching it grow. So that's my problem, is I'm always going and going and going, taking on more and more and more. And I have no idea what it contributes at the end of the day. Because I'm just like, as long as I'm doing, then I'm sure I'll find some success. And I drive myself into the ground and I sacrifice my sanity for being for having checked it off the list. I mean, I'm sure it's money, but it's also it's got to be something that I can see to be able to tell you really what that progress has been made. So maybe if I send an email, maybe if I make a video, maybe if I blah, 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 I should have some sort of baseline about where I'm at and then see where it goes after that, and just kind of play a game of like, let's test this and see if that works. If not, then let's move on, pivot. I don't know.
Yes, 100%. And there are 2 universal truths, right? So if you're planning your best life, the only way you can know what your best life is if you're trying things you've never done before. It's the only way. Otherwise, we're stuck in like, maybe my best life will come to me, and it doesn't, right? So how are we trying things we've never done before to figure out if we like them, if they're interesting, they lead us to something else? The one that's parallel to that is customers it's a factor of math. If you need to double your customers, if you used to need 20, now you need 40, at those 3 steps we just talked about, hi, my name is, here's what I do you want to play? We have to go back and double those numbers throughout that process. So if you need 40, you need to tell 80 people, do you want to play? Minimum. In truth, it should be times 4, right? And then if you have to times that by 4 and tell people what you did. And then times that by 4 and say hi and make people know that your name. It just becomes, then you can have the cascade effect of statistics. So again, who's done that quick math? Who knows how many people they need to get involved? And do you need me to draw that? You guys are making some crazy faces now. So that's usually when I think I've lost you. I'm going to draw it on my scrap paper because it'll be faster. I'm pulling out my calculator because I can't do any math, even if it's simple math anymore. Okay, can you see this? It's super ghetto. If we're going to say hi, here's what I do, here's what I make. Do you want some? And get a sale. Assume we need 4 people. We need to tell 16 people what we sell, or I have to ask 16 people if they want to buy. We need 64 to know what we make and what we sell. And we need to tell almost 250 people just hello. Okay, so I'll make that prettier so you guys can have it somewhere. But when you think about that, what step are you skipping right now with your business?
I think I'm skipping the high part.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So often I'll see people compressing all of these where you're like, hi, bye. And you're like, whoa, right? Because again, if we think about dating, you don't say, hi, let's get married. Like that's weird. So we have to remember that we would, just like we would never say, hi, let's get married before you say your name or what you do, or are you sketchy, right? We have to remember the same thing. Our customers don't know who we are. So we have to remember to separate the steps. And then we also have to remember to do the math behind it, right? You were asking Gail about how do we have some milestones that we can measure. So if you're going to really measure things, don't just measure, did my sales grow? Also measure how many people did I get my face in front of? How many people did I get my brand in front of? Who's heard of brand marketing and brand awareness? Right. So often we forget that brand awareness has to exist before we can do any selling. Like it's so rare that people buy something that they've never heard of before. It's so rare. So when you think about, again, with footwear is a good example, right? Because most people buy shoes from like the same known companies. So if you're a new footwear company starting, you have to spend 70% of your budget just on telling people you exist and why they should even pay attention to you. You haven't even asked them to buy anything yet. You're just saying like, look at me, right? That's all you're doing. So when we think about how much competition there is from a small business perspective, we have to spend that initial part of our business of saying, hi, I'm over here. Hi, just grabbing people's attention. So often we just skip doing that when we launch something and we go right to, hi, buy me. And people get freaked out. And that's, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, can I ask a question when it comes down to like the visibility side of things?
Yes.
So there's different pillars in my business where visibility might be expanded or, yeah. So Instagram obviously is where I make most of my money, but it also circulates a lot of the same regular customers. And then when it comes down to doing a Kickstarter, it also reaches out to a broader audience, but the level of effort is higher and the cost is a lot higher. So potentially I can bring in more people that aren't in my Instagram circle and can become regular customers. Same thing with going to like conventions. So conventions, people, the most connected to my artwork people are people who have met me in person. People who have seen, I met you at a convention and now I'm a patron, or I met you at a convention and I had no idea that you existed because they're not on the internet.
Yes. So I know exactly where you're going, right? So historically, you've listened and been like, oh, Kara, I'm already doing that. I know I need more people. So I keep doing these other things. So what you're doing in disguise is making a whole new business versus pushing all those people into your first business. So if you go to a convention, that's a great new exposure, but all those people sure as hell better be getting into your Shopify, onto your email list. Everyone should be funneling to the same place. So instead of making all these different funnels to attract different people and keep them in their little box, we have to go all these people into one funnel, into one place. And that's also what happens when we are marketing different products to all the people at once. What is your starter thing? What's the first thing you want people to buy? What's one thing you can market externally? Because once you have someone who's bought something and you have their email, you can sell them everything else you have. So has anyone ever read Freakonomics, the book? It's an easy read. It's by two professor of economics, and their version of economics is not necessarily financial. It's more statistical about human behavior and interactions. The book is fascinating because it tells you just very cool anecdotes. And one of the people they're tracking are drug dealers in Chicago. And they have a whole chapter on why they are the smartest businessmen in the world. And based on what I was just, any idea why you think they're the smartest business people in the world? Not necessarily ethical, but smartest business people. They know the game. Oh, go ahead, Miranda.
I was going to say they target the right customer.
Well, yes, one of them, right? Because if you
Yeah.
have to sell something and not get caught, you got to be real smart and focused about like who you're talking to, who's a hot lead. You're not going to walk up to my dad on the street. He clearly is not going to be buying drugs, but so who else might be, right? So you're always scanning.
Yeah.
Who's hot lead, who's not. The second thing they do is they're only selling one thing.
Right.
The gateway drug, right? What is
Yeah.
your gateway drug? What is the thing that's going to lead people to want your other products? So, because once you've got a customer who bought fill in the blank, every drug dealer is going to start selling you all the other drugs they have, right? Why would they turn it off? They're either going to sell you more or sell you more options. And so there's a lot to learn from their methodology of how they create their sales funnel. They're always looking for a customer. They know how to choose a hot lead versus a cold lead, and they're just offering strangers one thing. Until you're a friend, I'm not selling you anything else. Right? Because you have to. You can't trust them.
Yeah.
Right?
So I know you're not a cop.
Right. So when we look at our businesses, are we selling people our gateway drug, or are we selling them everything we've got in our trench coat, right? Which that's like such an old visual. So I think I'm dating myself of like people selling things. One, I think it means I'm from the East Coast, because I think only people in New York City actually sell things from inside of a trench coat. Yeah. So what's percolating now? Yes, Christina.
So for me, should I be focusing on coaching or Reiki? Like, and because I get more clients through energy healings.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because it's cheaper. So I don't know. I'm just doing both.
So I'm just gonna repeat what you said just now. Should I do coaching or Reiki? More people call me for energy healing. So,
but coaching is what I want to be doing.
That's okay, right? But like, but what does the customer want?
Yeah, that's where I get stuck too, is still figuring out all these places to tell people hi and talk to them. And because, it sounds easy to go into Facebook groups, but it's a lot of time and energy just to say hi and not go anywhere.
For sure, right? There's a whole level of like the tactics to move people through this faster and get how do you make it more effective? We did an analysis of just people who booked a coaching call with me in 2020. People who booked a coaching call, 65% became a client. That's really high, right? Really high. I'm also a business coach. I probably have some secret advantages, right? But the secondary part was like who came for a business call and then joined or bought something else I had, because that didn't work. And that was like 75%. So to me, the coaching call, like setting up those calls, is like the most effective thing I can do. I had someone call me today from Yelp if we should do ads. I'm like, I don't think I need to spend money on that business. Like, it's working. It's okay. And so there's like really looking at how do you get people in. So how I'm getting people into my pipeline is a free 20-minute phone call. So if how you get people into your pipeline is an energy healing consultation, the answer might be coaching, right? The answer might be, you know what, you just need 4 Reiki sessions and like, let's start there. But it allows you to start sorting your hot and cold leads, especially for your higher ticket items. So does that make sense?
I
Mhm.
like going off of what you're saying, I gifted certain people product,
Mhm.
like a cocktail box,
Yep.
and they were, strategically, well, I liked them, of course, but they weren't really too aware about what I was doing.
Mhm.
So, I gifted one woman, I was like, here, I think you'll enjoy it. This is what I've been working on. I just wanted you to see it. And she ended up like buying a bunch. Every time someone has a birthday, she buys one from me. And like, it just kind of like spread just from
Mhm.
promoting stuff to the right people and getting them in. And they're like, whoa, this is cool.
You followed the drug dealer policy for that part of your business.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So sometimes the best thing you can do to move sales in your direction, or to move anything in your direction, like if you're planning an event or a project, or you just want to figure out how to get scuba diving lessons, you want as many people as possible to say yes to you. Right? So it's easy for people to say yes to a 20-minute phone call. But what's great about that is that when they sign up, I have their phone number and their name and their email, and they're talking directly to me. There's no Instagram, there's no Facebook, there's no, I hope you see this in the 4 seconds you're looking and our Instagrams cross paths. None of that's happening. So what is something that you can create that would add value to somebody's life and make it easy to say yes to? The easiest thing in your portfolio to say yes to should probably be what you make your gateway drug. Now, and sometimes it can flip, right? It depends on where you start getting more yeses from, like it'll start tipping the scales, right? So for you, Christina, if you're telling people what you do, that you're an energy healer that goes through all these different things with people, but you can back off the pressure, like, but just come to a Reiki session, right? Just do the baby step. The more people who are saying yes to the baby step, and because you do that great conversation with people after, in that conversation with people after is your opportunity to sell them what's next, either more Reiki packages or a coaching package. And you kind of have to know people enough to know if they're the right match for what you can do. Because especially in the world that you do, being both a therapist and in this space, the second you get someone talking and you're reading their energy, you know who's a hot mess. You know who really needs you, right? So that's your hot lead, right? That's you scanning, are they hot or cold? And then you get to speak exactly to what they said they need help with and how you can change that for them. And it's not like you're speaking to it in an inauthentic way, like you really can help them. So people tell us so much if we're listening. There's the best salespeople are the ones that are listening and asking lots of questions.
I had a question.
Mhm.
So I, as you know, I don't have a business, and I know I want to eventually start one, but I'm just kind of like have a bunch of different ideas just constantly like going in my head. But I guess, it's a little bit off topic, but a question for you would be, like, do you think this would be a good way, like what we've been talking about, like a good way to work backwards in a sense? Because I feel like I have some ideas that might, like the idea sounds great, but when I really think about it, I don't know if it would actually make sense. So do you suggest like working backwards when trying to brainstorm like what exactly I would want to do?
Yeah, I honestly think that it actually really aligns with what we've been talking about, right? Because everyone here has a list of ideas. Some of them are in just different stages of happening. So you want to test it enough with different people you think will be customers, like kind of pitch the idea. Like, hey, do you think this would be fun? Would you want to make this, would you want to do this with me? Would you like this to be fixed for you? And start testing people who you see as potential customers or who think it would be fun to do whatever you're doing with, right? I'm using vague words because I don't know the list of your things, right? So what's an example of one of the things on your list?
It's a lot of like an idea that I have. So I'm really into health and wellness, and especially like healthy, like paleo, like treats and stuff, and snacks. So I always thought the idea of like starting my own brand, or maybe selling like paleo goodies at the farmers market or something like that. Yeah, it's not like super specific on what that item is, but I like the idea of doing something like that.
Well, I think that what Miranda talked about is a great example, right? If you want to see if that's so when you're evaluating a business, at least from my perspective, right, in the space of thriving, we want to evaluate, is this a business that I want to run, right? Do I want to have to step in and do parts A to Z of this business? And the second part is there a market for it? So it's easier to first see if there's a market for it. So I would say make some of your treats, put together little boxes, just like Miranda did, and give them to some people and ask for their feedback. Because do they like them? Do they taste good? How much would you buy for this? Does this help improve your life? Does it help you with your goals, right? All the things that could help you. And then just keep testing it, right? So if you're enjoying making it, are you enjoying talking to people about it? Are you enjoying designing the box? Are you enjoying delivering them or figuring out how to get them to people? That's that test phase where if we have a new idea, we can start taking these baby steps to like see which ones catch fire. And so in that test phase, I just recommend saying like, okay, I'm going to take this on from now until April 1st. I'm just using the first quarter as a barrier or end markers, and say, and I'll invest, $1,000 over that time in costs or gas to like drop things off and just see what happens. But the best thing you can do with an idea that comes up is try it. Try it. And often where the idea starts, because we're trying it and because we're talking to people about it and because we're like kind of following where it's going, it might lead to some other genius thing where you're like, oh, it wasn't that first idea, it's the second idea. That's the one. It's who's had that experience in the rest of the group where you go down one path and realize it's path 2? Yes, you guys had that in your own businesses?
Yeah, I guess it's just the starting it is hard.
Yeah. And again, don't think you need a website, Instagram. You don't need all those things, right? Really just make the food and ask some people if it tastes good. That's step 1. Just prove that the food works, and then you can start layering on everything else. Yeah. Okay, so we have wrapped up for today. So homework, right? I want you guys to think about some things. For the stuff that you want to take on, for your projects or your businesses, whatever you want to segment, the different options you have to where you're going to focus this year. Do that analysis about, for each one, how much money did they bring in 2020? How much time did I have to commit to doing those? And even if you say like too much, a lot, a little, it doesn't need to be exact hours. And then ask yourself, how much are you spending on those? Just so you can see those 3 factors: cost, time, and income by the products or pillars or businesses. So you can start to see which ones are healthier than others. And then ask yourself, based on the healthiest business, what would happen if I just focused on doing my drug dealer sales policy for that business? I bet you didn't think that we were going to start doing drug dealer economics in today's group call, right? So take that on. And so let's talk about that on Monday. But I really want you guys by the end of this month to have a plan for what are you going to focus on doubling, or in, Maddie, your case, like, what are you going to focus on launching? Because the only way things happen is if we decide, yes, we start and we do it. Like, that's it. That's the only way. So we can't double sales by thinking about it. We can't double sales by dreaming about it. We have to just like choose, narrow our focus, and go. And then that's when the results show up, right? Okay. Any final questions, comments?
I just had one quick one. That little thing that you drew.
Yes.
When are you when are you going to put that up?
I can do it. So let me go draw it up right now. I'll just make it into a quick PDF and I'll put it into the feed. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just thinking that would actually be a great way to do the customer journey.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Like literally those 4 steps, I'm also using with a customer who's launching an online course. The first, 2 months of marketing is just, hi, my name is, the first 2 months. Then the next quarter, we'll keep doing that. Plus, hey, here's what we do. And the next 2 months, we're talking about like, do you want to buy? Do you want to buy it? But we have to build that listening first. And the listening, and if I keep saying this word and it's crazy, this works in relationships with people too. You can't tell anyone anything unless they really want to hear what you're saying. So I'm sure if you have kids, you've experienced this, or like they're just not. This happens with, with partners all the time, all the time. So unless they're like listening and like seeing you as that thing, they won't hear the message. That's why it's so important to go through those really basic steps. So I will put that chart up. I'll also put the little grid of like the three questions to measure your businesses and products against. So you can decide which one's the one that you're going to double first, or get to an efficiency level first before you start tackling boosting the other ones. Okay. Awesome, guys. Thank you. And Maddie, I want to know what's going to happen with your recipes.
Working on it.
All right. All right. You're welcome. And don't forget, you guys, use the Thrive, right? If you have questions about your business ever, or you want to try an idea, or hey, who wants this? Ask in the group, right? Because we have this whole community of people who like giving feedback and have opinions. Yeah. Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you.